How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of. You thought I was going to say something like stupid questions. So, yes, this is the Stupid Questions podcast. Today, we are going to be talking with Miguel Maddox. He just finished his first year as a professional triathlete, finished 31st in the world when it came to the 70.3 Worlds in Lahti, Finland. He is also the founder, along with Jenna, of the Freestyle Tri YouTube channel and guest community. And stuff like that. So today we're just going to talk to him and hear his story. He has a lot of cool things to share. So without further ado, Miguel Maddox. But
Yeah.
dude, thank you so much for jumping on. Super nice to meet you. I think there's a little bit of a delay, but we'll work through it. But would love to just first hear, who is Miguel Maddox?
That's a stupid question. No, just
Yeah.
kidding. uh, who am I? Well, I'm a professional triathlete, and a content creator. That's kind of my day-to-day who I am these days. I
hmm
grew up in Northern California, Marin County. It's a beautiful area just north of San Francisco. Um, and from an early age was exposed to, a lot of the nature and activities that we have come to appreciate in our older ages, but not when I was a kid. I was swimming in a pool growing up, so I guess the younger
Yeah.
Miguel Maddox was a pool swimmer competitively for 20 years. Did that through high school, through college, and started a career in marketing shortly after that. Shortly after I
Nice.
graduated from college, and basically was thirsty for something competitive again. I finished my competitive swimming career on a really high note, and was just kind of like left wanting more, which I didn't have at the time. So, about 6 months to a year passed, and I got involved with triathlon through a friend of a friend who turned out to be my first coach in the sport, and that carried me through to where I am today. So there's the high level where I'm from, who I am.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, where are you like living right now? And I think you actually did say where you grew up, and I apologize, I'm asking it again.
Yeah, well, I currently live where I grew up. So Marin County,
Okay.
Northern California, Bay
Okay.
Area. And it's the perfect place to, do what we do to train year round. We don't really have severe winters, although it is pretty chilly today, but like chilly for
Yeah.
us is like 45 to 50 degrees. So, it's
Yeah.
a great place to be doing what I do.
Yeah. Is that the current degrees outside? Is it like 50? Do you know
50.
exactly what it
Yeah,
is?
it's about 50 right now, and that's as cold as our days get here.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Tough life. Tough,
Yeah,
tough, tough. So, tell me about siblings. Do you have them?
I do. I have one older brother. He's 5 years older. We've had, I mean, he lives in San Francisco, so it's super close, 15 minutes away.
Yeah.
We've always been extremely close. And he's, in a lot of ways, kind of like paved the way to, you know, becoming who I am. He was also a
Yeah.
swimmer growing up. He was also
Okay.
into, a little bit of filmmaking and like documentary filmmaking, which is a program
Yeah.
that I participated in high school, 5 years after
Nice.
him. I remember in high school, his senior year, he broke the 500 freestyle school record, and he was
Oh, wow.
super jazzed about it. He'd finally done it. He had been looking at that record for a while. And then I
Yeah.
came in the next year as a freshman and beat it. So that's kind of, but zero hard feelings between us.
Yeah.
There's never been any animosity on how things have played out in our lives. We're different people, but
Sure.
and have a fantastic relationship. But there's that context in my life of like having the older brother and being kind of like the guiding light to test the waters of things that I'm interested in before I
Yeah.
actually go in and do
Yeah.
them. So it's
Yeah.
been
Let you know
very
you can do
fortunate to
those
have
things.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super neat. So what is he doing right now? Where's he at?
He's working in tech. again, super close by. But
Yeah.
yeah, he does some things that I would not venture in. Like he's one of the guys out here in Northern California that belongs to a swimming club that, they swim in the bay. And for people that don't really understand what that means, the bay here never gets warm. It tops out at 60 degrees, and through the winter it gets down to like 48 degrees, which is just
Mm.
like that is just
Frigid.
it's crunchy. It
Yeah,
hurts.
literally.
It's pins and needles in your body every time you get in. But he's one of the guys out here that jumps in there without a wetsuit, which I am
All year round?
all year round. Yeah, him, my dad,
Oh my.
my brother's fiance, they do it no wetsuit, which is crazy. But
How
to each
many
their own, I
people
guess.
have died? Yeah, how many people have died doing that craziness?
Enough to
You
make
think
it
any?
just legitimately dangerous. Yeah, yeah. I've gotten
Is
hypothermic out
he,
here.
yeah, is he like the type to get a squirrel suit and let's make this thing happen, be 6 inches off the face of a cliff? Is he like just an adrenaline junkie?
No, he's not. He's like a very chill dude. And
Quite literally, yeah.
yeah, literally. But I think it's something that we have here in the Bay Area that like if you've kind of like grown up close to it,
Hmm.
you experiment with it. Like I was pretty
Yeah.
good at swimming out there in my youth, when I had a little more body fat, um, and now I'm just a weenie. But
Yeah, you're just too shredded. Like, oh, poor you.
there are guys that have like no body fat that do that. Like my brother is one of them. He is not a big dude, but somehow you just get
Yeah.
used to it.
Yeah, acclimation. I don't know if you're familiar with Wim Hof, but he reminds me of one of those types. Like, gonna go hike
Same
up
deal.
Everest with just my shorts on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's
crazy.
funny because like to your point asking about like are they adrenaline junkies? It's like they aren't. If you meet them, you would never
Quite
expect
the
them to
opposite.
be like these hardcore people that jump in the freezing cold bay. But
Yeah,
they do it.
yeah, yeah. Super interesting. So tell me, when were you first introduced to oatmeal?
I was introduced to oatmeal. I mean, I didn't grow up around oatmeal. We weren't a big oatmeal household. So
Mm-hmm.
that came later. I think it was during, the height of the pandemic when Jenna and I I should back up too. The content part of my life is I run a YouTube channel with my fiance Jenna. The channel is called Jenna and Miguel Freestyle Tri. Um,
Which we will
and
link. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Had to get that in there. But we started that YouTube channel in the pandemic days, so like 2020. But when we
Yep.
were um, when we were kind of just like bopping around the country because we both terminated our leases in New York just to get out of the city, we were basically just like nomads for a while. And I think that led to like you know, people were like baking bread, right? Like people started new hobbies. We started a YouTube channel. We started to like get creative with our food and our cooking and everything. So,
Yeah.
um, we started making oatmeal before our big days of training, called it Big Day Oats. And you know, patent still pending, but we're hoping to blow that up, make it something someday.
Like, actually, is this like a specific recipe for the banger oatmeal?
I think the idea of Big Day Oats is to don't stop with the oatmeal. Like a lot of people stop with just like, let me pour myself a bowl of oats and eat it. No, no, no. You should make your oatmeal, put some chia, flax, banana, peanut butter, other nut, like anything that you have in your pantry, really, to a certain extent, is allowed in your oatmeal
Yeah,
and is
sure.
encouraged. So, I think that's what Big Day Oats really is. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So, if I may, my wife introduced me to making oatmeal the right way, or I would consider the right way, because when growing up, it was like you said, the quick oats,
hmm
boil it and put it all in at the same time, and then you throw in a little brown sugar and stuff, and it's like spluck. It's like
Yeah.
just nasty looking cafeteria food. So I married my wife, and she introduced me to this way of cooking oatmeal, which I would like to briefly go through with you and just get your professional opinion on if it could be improved. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, I'm no professional, but I'm more of a critic, so this is good. Bring it on.
Okay, okay. So here we go. So I always do a half cup of oats, depending on the day, but it's most of the time half cup of oats. So I put in just over, I fill up one half cup, put it in the water, then like a third of that half cup, put it in. Dash a little salt, put it on the burner, usually fire, let it come to a boil. As soon as it's like almost to a boil, I dump in the oats, then turn it on low, spread the oats around, and then you basically let the water cook down until it's like it's almost to the bottom to where you don't want it to burn, but it's like the water is just enough and it's gone where there's a little bit of liquid. So then I take it, I put it into a bowl. I take at least 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, if not three. And it's hot enough to where like I take half of it, I put it on the peanut butter, it melts it. It's like natural peanut butter, so it melts it. You stir it around. Then I have chopped up apples, diced and sliced in half banana, and then sliced again. Put that in there with some walnuts, and then it varies. Sometimes strawberries, whatever's cheap at the market, blueberries, usually flaxseed, honey, and that's usually more or less it. So, is that the right way to make oatmeal, according to
That's
you? Do you have
that's
any
a right
feedback?
way to make oatmeal. I love the extra peanut
You can
butter.
say no.
You shouldn't skimp on your nut butter. That's a vital part. The
Go
berries, the
heavy.
fresh berries is great. One suggestion that I have, if you may,
I
is
shall may.
to throw something cold on there too. Like we'll use like frozen berries. We'll top it with some frozen berries, and that contrast
Okay.
of like hot oatmeal with like something frozen that is melting within the heat, or like some yogurt too
Mm,
out of the fridge.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a nice contrast. Maybe some
Yogurt. I
granola
haven't
too
done
for the
yogurt.
hard crunch. But you have that with
Yeah, yeah,
apples.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good crunch. So you know.
Yeah. So I feel the birth of an idea because I talked to my wife about this. A restaurant circled just around, like it's got a wall of cereals and granolas, and specializes in all things oats, oatmeal, granola, and like you go on different kinds of crazy milks. Shall we start this? We can call it the Freestyle Kitchen or the what did you call it? The Big Oats, Big Day Oats or something?
Big Day Oats, Big Day Oats. No, we're Jenna and I were
That's a
talking
great
about
restaurant
having
name.
something like this at our wedding. We're probably gonna have either a an ice cream bar with every topping you can imagine, or an oatmeal bar, or both. Like the toppings
Yeah.
are similar, so you could do both,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's sick. Sweet.
and
Well,
then
when I
we'll
file
turn
for
it
the
into a
business license,
restaurant.
I'll call you guys up.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
let's do it.
Exactly. So going back a little bit, you say on your website that your parents are, quote, wildly athletic. Who are you more like, your mom or your dad?
I'd probably say my mom. Um, she's always had this personality of not necessarily thinking through physical challenges until she's in
Before she
them.
doesn't.
Yeah. Um, so I think like, for example, she last year, the last like decade, I guess, she's been battling some pretty severe arthritis in both of her knees. And she had to get double knee replacements in December of last year. And pretty much shortly after she signed up for this event, a triathlon in Lake Tahoe, which is at elevation. It's at 6,000 feet. It was a sprint triathlon, but she basically signed up for
Hmm.
that before the knee replacements even happened. I don't know if she physically signed up, but she was like, "I'm doing this." Um,
Yeah.
and she's a physical therapist, so she knows the human anatomy very well. She knows what recovery is going to look like, but um, she doesn't think those things through. She's just like, let me sign up for this stuff. Let me just go do it. And you get to the
Yeah.
race and it's kind of like, oh, like we're here. I'm really nervous. Are my knees going to be able to last? I haven't run in 15 years. Like just things like that.
Oh my goodness.
Um, so, I think I mean, she's an athlete though, so she's confident she can do these things. Um, but I
Yeah.
think I'm in the same boat. Like, it's this year was a jump for me from age group to professional triathlon, and I haven't really
and you crushed it.
succeeded. Thank you, thank you. But I haven't really like, been like blowing everyone out of the water in the age group field. Like there are some fast age groupers out there, but like there is, there wasn't too much to like go on in terms of like, oh, I'm going to succeed at being a professional. Um, but for me, it was important to not overthink it and to just kind of do it and take it
Yeah.
as like a let's see what happens kind of thing. But
Yeah.
that's definitely what my mom has been like in the realm of sports her entire life, and
Yeah.
she was a fantastic runner in her day, and she did Kona in 1989. So she was, one of
Oh,
the
wow.
OG triathletes and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Legit. Yeah, that's a cool point, a cool point of influence and inspiration for sure. And just for everyone listening, don't want to let Miguel get off the record too easily, but you did Worlds, and I believe you finished, correct me if I'm wrong, 31st in the world, and then you did it in only like 15 minutes behind the leader with a time of 3:48. For us mere mortals, that's like really, really flipping fast and a lot faster than a lot of age groupers. So I can't let you get by with it, making it sound like you were just like back of the everything.
right,
I'm sure
right.
you wanted
No,
more, but
well,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I cannot be disappointed with how I did this year. It was just the
yeah,
improvements that I made this year in triathlon were the biggest I've ever made in the sport, including like the first couple years of
yeah,
doing the sport. I just had a breakthrough year, and it didn't take me until racing professionals to make that happen. I'm not sure what the reasoning
yeah.
was. I think like a lot of
The
support
bar
from
raised.
yeah, yeah. I mean, racing helps, like being competitive. I'm I'm a competitive person, having, support from new sponsors and just having encouragement both from like family and Jenna and friends and everyone that's kind of like been like you can do this, like you got this, has
Yeah,
helped me get to where I am for sure.
yeah, for sure. So you're pro. You're doing the freestyle try stuff. You're doing sponsor contracts. You're obviously super busy training. What has your life looked like transferring from like, let's just go even right before the pandemic started and you started freestyle try. It seems like your free time has probably exponentially decreased and your time demands have exponentially increased. Is that accurate? And how are you managing that?
Um, Yeah, I yes and no. When we started the YouTube channel, like I had a full-time job. Um, so regardless of how, I think that's one of the beautiful things about this sport is like, well, it's not that beautiful, but there's not a lot of money in it, right? So like most people,
Yeah,
professional or not, have to do something else and have to fill their
yeah,
time up not training with other things, just to
yeah,
make it sustainable. So I think at the beginning of this journey, it was the time demands were just different. It was like I have to report to my employer and get my work done. And when that job ended, it was like, okay, well, let me fill up this time with making more videos, making more content, reaching out to potential sponsors, like growing this business. So it kind of goes in waves, I guess, is like, every opportunity I can get to like not have as much work day to day and like replace that work with a nap
yeah.
in the middle of the day is super valuable.
Mm,
So, once I try to figure out how to do that, it seems like something else comes up and it's like, oh, no time to nap anymore. Like you're under contract to get to fulfill these other obligations. And so,
yeah,
it, there are stressful times for sure, but like I said, it's one of the cool things. It's like it's no more stressful than what other pros are doing, what other age group athletes are doing. It's like we're all kind of doing a similar journey.
yeah. I'm curious. I want to ask a little bit of a selfish question
Please.
for the sponsor side of thing because you started the YouTube channel and obviously your influence on Instagram, the other social medias has grown, and then exposure with what you've been doing with I guess EMJ in the background before, and then Working Triathlete, all of these different things. Um, my specific question around that growth has been, what has the dynamic been like in the change from the very beginning when you're, like you said, reaching out to sponsors in the beginning? What was your rejection rate? And then like now, today, like you're obviously more popular and I think still going to continue to grow. You probably have a little bit more leverage now. Like what did that look like in the beginning and then to what it is now?
Yeah, rejection rate was super high at first, for sure. I think like the most important thing I did with my career in terms of like sponsorships and growing my brand was being on Team EMJ for a couple years. Granted, it was during the time where, racing wasn't happening. The 2 years that I was on the team, the team camps got canceled. And for people that don't
Yeah.
know what Team EMJ is, they're a huge, mostly amateur team. You'll see their racers at every age basically getting on the podium. It's uh,
Everyman Jack. Yeah.
Everyman Jack. Yeah, thank you. But it's an amazing program. It offers athletes the opportunity to kind of like be partially sponsored and be a part of a team, um,
Mm-hmm.
and help you grow in the sport. And for me, I used it as a way to get better, have more affordable gear, and also to give myself a reputation of like being somebody that doesn't just kind of like fall into the general realm of triathletes. So it's like I'm part of this kind of like elite team and getting recognized when I
Mm-hmm.
show up to races, having other people to talk to, and to start building connections. Like, it's a cool way of like getting in touch with different brands that like you have instant credibility.
Yeah.
So when I left,
Platform.
when I was when I was you know starting the YouTube channel with Everyman Jack, there were a couple opportunities that were separate from EMJ. So once that started to happen, it didn't fully make sense for me to be on the team anymore because it's like I want to chase these other opportunities. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be kind of building my own thing with Jenna. It's a guys only team too, so like Jenna wouldn't wasn't benefiting from it as much.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, but still that, because building these relationships with brands and going off after sponsors, it's all about credibility. Like you can't, it's very hard to be a nobody and reach out to a brand and get a
Yeah.
reaction or get a response even. So, coming from a credible team, working already with brands, gave us an opportunity to like reach out to other brands with something in your back pocket. And
Yeah.
having that at the start has kind of carried through to today. And like, obviously, yeah, the dynamic has definitely shifted. We get reached out to now by different brands, and like, we have sponsors that we work really well with that are introducing us
Yeah.
to other brands, which is, the holy grail. Like, you're no longer doing the outreach, but it's like someone that is
Yeah.
on the other
It's
side of
coming to
this is
you.
like, hey, these guys are amazing to work with. You should work with them too. So, it's just a matter of like figuring out where to start building that credibility, um, is key. And then obviously like being consistent with content is what we've always been good at. So I mean, it's a balancing act because all of the sponsorship stuff, outreach, obligations, that takes time as well as
Yeah.
making content.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah,
Interesting. Thanks for sharing. So
yeah.
I want to go back a little bit to your parents. How did they or do they influence, I guess, did influence your upbringing and direction in your life outside of sports?
I think first and foremost was just the idea of just togetherness and family.
Mm-hmm.
They we were the family that, sat at the dinner table together for every meal. I like growing up, I was always jealous of my friends that would be like, "Oh, like I'm just gonna go eat dinner on my own," or like, "Do you want to go like grab a quick bite and then we'll go do something?" And I was like,
Mm,
man, that freedom sounds amazing. But like now looking back
mm,
on it, it's like I'm so fortunate that I was in a family that
you had
was
that.
that valued that time together. It was like without exception, we
Yeah.
have to eat dinner together. Um, so, I think you can draw you can make these connections to sport like with anything, but
Sure.
having that kind of togetherness and family ideals growing up has like helped me cherish that in doing what I do today. It's like I understand just as well as anybody that you can't do this sport alone. You need positive reinforcement. You need other people in your corner to be helping you and encouraging you. But beyond that, you need to find, joy and value in life outside of your day to day. And for me, that is like connecting with other people, whether it's with Jenna or just the community that we're building. Like we seek connection in that kind of like close, intimate way. Um, so yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Just being
Yeah.
driven towards like family values and togetherness.
Yeah. It's a rare thing these days, so that's really neat to hear that you grew up with it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So, who is responsible, you think, for the most influence of your life other than your parents?
Ooh. Um, I would say, well, my brother, who we've talked about, but outside of family, um, and kind of like my upbringing, it would probably be my swim coaches and swim team. I'm gonna kind of group that into one because everyone, like the coaches that I had on my club swimming team through the end of middle school and through high school, um, like those coaches were extremely wise.
Yeah.
It wasn't a kind of team where you would show up and you would just like, all right, let's get in the pool and swim a million yards. It was like, let's go into the classroom first and talk about like migrating geese for an hour because there's a lesson to be learned from that.
All
So it
right,
was like,
migrating geese.
yeah, it was, I like specific, I don't remember what the takeaway was, but I do remember a presentation they gave literally with a PowerPoint and everything, about
Wow.
migrating geese. And I think it was like their, flocking nature and like how if one is behind, then they wait up for that one. And, it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, I could be totally wrong, but something like that. But
No,
that
I
was
get
the
it. I
kind
could
of
be off some things.
environment. Yeah, that was the kind of environment that was created. Um, and I think, being analytical and being like thoughtful about what I'm doing has never left me. That's always been a huge part. I'm not the kind of person that like wakes up, looks at the workouts that I have, and then I just like go mindlessly do them. I'm like, how is this going to help me? What can I take away from this workout? Um, so I think like and beyond that, like the things that I do outside of sport, like on, making YouTube videos, it's like how can I tell a really meaningful story? Like how can I just avoid dumping out garbage into the world? And I'm sorry, some people
Mm,
might think we dump out garbage, but that's okay. But I make an effort to like create content that is, hopefully a little more meaningful, hopefully not
yeah.
just like look at me train, but like something that people can take away and possibly like feel better about because we're trying to be real and tell a story. So I think kind of like that thoughtfulness, um, as it related to swimming at the time has kind of like carried into other aspects of my life. And I literally still swim with these coaches. Like they coach the masters team that I go to at least once a week. So I get to see them and they've remained kind of like key mentors in my life. So,
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, and if anyone's curious in the Bay Area, I'm talking about North Bay Aquatics. That's the youth team, that's the masters team, but the coaches have never failed to like keep that kind of thoughtfulness approach in mind.
Yeah, for sure. So I also read that you were quickly introduced to the quote power and natural beauty of Mother Nature. So what is it about nature or Mother Nature that inspires you? Talk to me about that power you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you clarified. You corrected yourself. It's Mother Nature, and she can
Mother
help
Nature.
you. She can destroy you. But the key is you have to respect her. Um, I think that has come again from my family growing up. Like we were the type of family that instead of going on classy trips to Europe or whatever, we would just be like, oh, we're gonna go hiking in the Sierras for a week. That was our family vacation. When I was 13,
Yeah.
well, when my brother was 13, my parents decided it would be a good idea to have this new tradition of Maddox initiation by climbing to the top of Mount Whitney, which is the top of the continental U.S. It's a mountain here in California, higher than any other peak in Colorado. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I,
how many thousands of feet is that?
I think it's at like close to 15,000. It's just under 15,000. Um, but it's the type of altitude that you go up there, no
Yep.
matter what your age is, and you're not breathing. Um, so
Yeah,
it was
14,500 feet.
there you go. Yeah, it's intense. So my brother did it when he was 13, and it's a day hike. You start at the base and you climb to the top in one day, and then you hike back down. Yeah, all in one day. And so when I was 13, it was the same deal. It was like, all right, kid, we're going to the top of Mount Whitney. This is how you're gonna become a Maddox. So, um, I think
It's crazy.
it was, and I got very sick at the top. I remember there's like we were gathering around to take a family photo, like on the peak, and I was like,
Mm,
guys, hold on one second, and then I just turned, vomited, and it's like, all right, ready
vomited.
for the
Oh
picture,
my word.
yeah.
Wow.
um, so I think it's such a weird relationship that I mean I think a lot of people have with Mother Nature. It's like I love her, she's beautiful, she can give me so much, but she can also like kick the shit out of me. Um, and I think like try like it sounds like weird, but like you can harness that power and you can make the most of it. Like, I've always
Mm,
considered myself good in crappy race day conditions. And I've kind of figured that out over the last few years that like, man, when it's really hot and miserable and everybody's melting, that's when I get excited to perform. And that's when I generally
yeah.
do like the best in these races. And it's the same thing in training when it's like cold and rainy outside. I'm like almost more not excited, but it's like I almost feel like I'm in a movie and the intensity kind of kicks up to 11 and you're just like
Yeah.
you it's just a feeling that I feel really powerful in. So, um, when Mother Nature like gets a little intense and kind of like wants to fight a little bit, it's something that I think you can use and you can use to your advantage. But I think that that's all been a part of my childhood and just like going and
Yeah.
being in it and understanding what it is and sorry, who she is and
Yeah.
just soaking it in.
Yeah, so it seems like there's almost like some religious undertones with this. Were you raised in like a religious or spiritual emphasis type of household, or is it like was it not that way?
My church was going to the beach on Sundays, so
Okay,
not in the formal religious sense, but
sure.
definitely like the spiritual undertones. Like my mom is like such a hippie that way. She like loves
Yeah,
talking about Mother Nature. She loves talking about like how her church is the beach and everything. So,
yeah.
that's for sure been there. So I guess yeah, the Church of Mother Nature is is who we are.
Church is saying, yeah.
Yeah.
So I lived in the Philippines for a year during college as part of the university we went to. They give you an option to like you can go study abroad for a year if you want.
Hmm.
You don't have to do these, or you can go be a student missionary for a year. I did the student missions route and went to the Philippines, and I took up surfing for the first time because we lived on the North Big Island, and
Yeah.
you during Christmas time it was super great. I got to get my head beat in quite a bit by Mother Nature.
Yeah.
But I remember meeting this guy from Australia, and because I was there as a missionary, so I was like, "Hey, like, what are you into? Tell me
Hmm.
about what your religion is, whatnot, whatnot." And he was like, he put his arms out and he said, "This is my religion," and he talked all about the waves and like how she moves you and feels you and stuff. I thought that was super interesting perspective, just to, especially around the energy aspect, because the ocean is such a crazy of a beast. I mean, I've been on some
Yeah.
small vessels before and felt storms, and
Oh
obviously if you
man.
get pulled under by a massive wave, there's just you're not fighting it. You got to go with it and to find your way back to the top eventually. And it's just super interesting. It reminded me of what you
Yeah,
said.
for sure. And yeah, that idea of like there's no greater energy in the world than like the world itself and the energy that's
Mm.
like and that I guess that's kind of what I was saying. It's like when you're in it and when you're trying to do something like athletic in our example is like there are ways to like harness that energy and to make you like a little more powerful on that day. Um, you're reminding me of a book. I don't know if you've read it or anyone out there has read it, but Barbarian Days. I forget the whole title, but um,
Okay.
it's a surfing book, but it's way more than that. It's about what we're talking about and kind of that
Yeah.
it's about someone's journey to kind of like becoming who they are, coming of age type of story.
Yeah.
The vehicle is surfing, but
Yeah.
it's a pretty like spiritual, amazing read. Good book.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll have to maybe check it out and link it. It actually reminded me of another book I read back when I was in college. I started this business in the textile industry, and so I looked up to Yvonne Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, quite a bit. And he wrote a book called "Let My People Go Surfing," and the whole premise was work, but don't let work define you. If the surf's up, then go get it, and kind of live life around that. I'm oversimplifying, but it reminded me of that book as well. So
For
that was
sure.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like how companies are doing more of like innovative companies. You're seeing more of that approach, like the enjoying life method. It just
yeah,
leads to more
yeah,
general
for sure.
happiness. I think we're understanding enough about how we operate that like you're gonna become burned out and depressed if you literally
Exactly.
work 9 to 5 every day. It's just not
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
sustainable.
for sure. No, it's not at all. And I think it's migrating a little bit more toward like I have experienced this in a very small detail, but the European way of living around how you relate work to family and, and free time and stuff like that. Like it's very much not go work yourself to death. It depends on the country, obviously, I think. But the ones I'm thinking of, like more like Denmark and things like that. And even during the pandemic, it's been interesting to see. I've always worked for myself, so I never really experienced the 9 to 5 that much, like
Hmm.
corporate America. But a lot of my friends have come out of that world and are working for themselves, and it's just changed our economy in such a wild way, from the influencer economy, but just working remotely. It's been really interesting to see how that's shifted and how it will continue to shift, I think, in the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's probably going to be like an overcorrection at some point, like, with so many people
Yeah,
going off and working for themselves, like what I did. I left corporate America and I'm working for myself now, but I think
yeah.
it's positive right now, but yeah, I'm curious to see like what that overcorrection is going to be and what downfalls there are going to be from it. But I think in general it's
Y-
definitely a huge positive.
Yeah. Yeah, especially out in the Bay. I've heard of some of the bigger tech companies like, okay, now you got to come into work 2 days a week. Okay, now it's three
Yeah,
days a week again, and you're trying to shift it back.
it's
Yeah.
starting to shift
For
back,
the
yeah.
shareholders. Yeah.
Make them happy.
Yeah. So in college, obviously, we talked about you were a swimmer and you took the helm as the team captain. And I read that you brought them or led them to the best conference finish to your school in history, with all kinds of school records. So, what was it like with that experience, and how did that change or mold you into, like, I guess, kind of the man you are today, and influence your leadership style, drive, motivation, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is most people think swimming is an individual sport, and just like people think triathlon is an individual sport. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we, we are, what's the word? Like we we evolved from tribes, like humans evolved from tribes.
Yeah.
We operate in communities. We do not operate well on our
Mm-hmm.
own. We need other people. We need support. We need to support others, um, to
Right.
make that's how we do things well. So I think for me, I learned that lesson in a very real sense, in my college swimming days. My junior year at Fordham, um, which is smaller, liberal arts school in New York, Division I swim program. But my junior year, an incident happened on campus with the swim team. Late night party, whatever. But basically, the entire senior class and some juniors, all got like half of them got expelled from the team or expelled from the school.
Wow.
All of them got kicked off the team. So we had to finish off my junior
Wow.
year basically like with nothing. It was the most depressing season
Wow.
ever. We finished last by hundreds of points. Like we showed up to conference with like not enough people. We were on the brink of like being just like we
Wow.
can't have a men's swim team anymore. So that's how we
Wow.
finished off the junior year, just in a full state of like nothing and depression. And
Yeah.
and then I was kind of forced into a captain role at that point, but it was like, who cares at that point? But it was kind of my responsibility. Um, we did not have a good coach either. It was a coach that really was there, had a great tenure and stuff, but really just didn't care anymore. So I felt like it was my
Wow.
responsibility, as well as the other remaining juniors that were becoming seniors. Like, we have to at least make this an
Yeah.
enjoyable experience. And we have a whole class of freshmen coming in that don't know what's going on. And we have to make sure, like, they're not falling into this, like, perpetual
Yeah.
state of, like, depression that we were in. Um, so, it it was a challenge, but we basically had to convince the whole team that, like, we're gonna do something special next year. Um,
Yeah.
and that only is done when you have, like, when you have other people bought in. It can't just be one voice. So, what we did is we got this new class of freshmen that were not exposed to this, to all the bad shit that had happened the year before, and we almost looked at them for leadership. Like, it was my idea to, like, see this brand new freshman class that was ready and excited to swim in a Division 1 swim program, to have
Hmm.
them, to harness that energy and kind of spread that enthusiasm through the whole team. And we didn't lie to them. We told them what had happened the year before. Uh,
Yeah.
but they they did an incredible job of, like, bringing everybody up and bringing kind of this young, fresh spirit into the team, and it brought everyone together, and it brought everyone closer. And we did things outside of swimming that were, healthy, that were not, like, drinking related, that were
Yeah.
safe, and just did our best to, like, bring everyone really close together.
Yeah.
So those two things, like, trying to lead that, like, togetherness initiative, and then also, like, harnessing this energy from a young group of people, just made everyone better. It made everyone show up on time, ready to do the work and ready to enjoy doing the work together. But yeah, it led to literally the most successful year that Fordham has ever had in men's swimming. We set a bunch of school records. The biggest point of pride was that everybody who went to conference that year, because you can only bring 20 people, everyone who went to conference
Hmm.
that year PR'd in something. And for a college swim team to be able to do that, like, to have a hundred
Yeah.
percent
Especially in
success,
Division 1, I feel like that's like
it's
even more.
you just yeah, it was special. Yeah, and it's like, not everyone, and I think everybody scored points at conference. Everybody contributed, and it was just like, we beat a team in a dual meet that we had never beat. The men's swim program had never beaten, I think it was UMass, if I'm remembering correctly. It was the last meet of the season, but it was
Mm.
like, there were just things like that that just, like, continued to drive this, like, this belief that we weren't what we were last year. And it was like small steps,
Mm.
obviously, but once we accomplished one small thing
Yeah.
together, it was like, we can do this next thing. We
Momentum.
can do this next thing. And it just kept going.
One of my wisest friends always says to me, especially when I'm going through a hard time, he's like, never waste a good crisis. And it just sounds like you guys were able to band together. That's really neat because when I think of like collegiate sports, I didn't, I mean, I didn't really do collegiate sports at any level, really. But I have like kind of this idea from high school stuff that I did. It's like when I played soccer and JV in high school, the upperclassmen were always just kind of like looking down on the little JV team, and like they were just kind of like, I don't know, a mean older brother type of situation. But to
Right.
hear that you guys shifted it to like bring inspiration from the freshmen, um, first of all, that must have made them feel like very like, oh, I need to be responsible. This little thumbs up thing, I don't understand this with Riverside. It keeps like throwing this little like thumbs up thing.
I
It's
know,
something
it's
new. I got to
funny.
figure that out. Anyway, let's see if it keeps doing it. It's so interesting. Okay, anyway, if you're not watching on video, you're probably confused, but it's interesting that you guys shifted it and must have made the freshmen feel like a sense of responsibility. But also, I can only imagine. There it is. I can only imagine like how inspired or excited they must have felt and felt like a part of something. I don't know if that's not always the case in collegiate sports, but it seems like a very counterintuitive to how things typically operate, way that you would operate something. So I hope that they kept that mentality throughout. And now that you're gone and you're beyond that, it's such a neat story.
Yeah, no, it you're right. It was like such a cool opportunity, I think, for them. I mean, they have
Yeah,
we still I keep in touch with some of them, and they like, through their
yeah,
journey of the latter 3 years of their careers there, it was like, man, you like really that was the coolest year, but like also thank you for what you did and everything. But like I
yeah,
think it definitely it, I mean, I'm thinking about, yeah, like when I was a freshman, when I'm like new to something, like how cool is it when other people that have been doing it for a while look at you and they're like, how, like, teach me how to do that. Teach me like how you're so
yeah,
energetic. Teach me like how you're swimming that fast in a dual meet and all those things. So I think and it's not like we're putting them ahead of everybody. Like it just it
yeah,
even the playing field, and they had something
yeah,
that we didn't have, and we had something that they didn't have. So again, it like back to the whole like evolving from tribes. That's how it operates. Like you don't have
yeah,
all the answers, and you don't have all the energy that you need to sustain yourself. So it's like you look to others. What do others have that I
yeah,
don't? And in triathlon,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
so key, because there's so much going
yeah.
on. You can't do everything alone.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is a team sport. I'm being convinced of that more and more, especially as I have these interviews. It's been really interesting. So, speaking of the community aspect, um, in your little community within Freestyle Tri, I guess I'm referring to you and Jenna. Like, how did you meet? When and how did you meet? And how does she fit into this whole story of Freestyle Tri and your passion turned profession?
Yeah. Well, Jenna also grew up in Northern California across the bay. She grew up in Orinda, so like, half an hour from where we are today. And she was also a swimmer. And ironically, we never met. We probably went to like hundreds of the same swim meets and probably
Yeah,
bumped into
just
each
ran
other in the
across.
warm-up pool a million times, but like we
Okay.
didn't know who each other were. Until we were both living in New York. We were both living in Brooklyn. We met at a small community rec pool, 3 lanes. No one knew how to swim except for us, and we were like,
Yeah,
"Hey, you know how to swim? I know how to
nice.
swim." um, so that's where our
Let's swim
relationship
together.
began. Yeah, exactly. And she had a boyfriend for the first 2 years of us knowing each other, so I patiently
Oh,
waited it out.
tough.
Yeah, but it worked out.
Nice.
The wait was worth it. But yeah, I and she initiated everything that Freestyle Tri is today. Because when we were going through the pandemic days together, she was working for a company, which she still is working for, called Hungry Root, and she's the photo and video manager at that company. And at the time, she was lower level, so she was literally taking pictures of food, and she was styling food and trying to,
Yeah,
make food look pretty on camera, literally, and
yeah.
that was her job. And there wasn't much of a creative outlet when it comes to doing that stuff. Like it was something new that she was
Mm-hmm.
learning, but after that, it was kind of like, um, there's a system and a protocol to it, and you do it and you wrap it up.
Yeah,
The best part about that job is we got like continuous meals delivered to her wherever we were in the country during the pandemic, so that was pretty fun. I would get
that's
off the
awesome.
bike and have this
Yeah.
fully styled meal waiting for me. Um,
Oh
but
man, poor
yeah,
you. Tough
yeah.
life.
Um, but because of that kind of like, you know, she was a little starved for creativity. She was like, I want to start making a video every day. And we got a drone, and that contributed to like us filming stuff and filming our training and
Yeah.
everything. And it wasn't a video a day, but it turned into, Freestyle Tri. It turned into us like making YouTube videos for ourselves and being goofy on camera and filming our swimming, biking, and running and eating and whatever
Yeah.
else. So, that whole start of the business was driven by her. And then I started to have more time at my job as I started to like quietly quit and started to do all the editing and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's kind of cool looking back on those days because it was like it a lot of it is the same. A lot of it is just like us trying to figure out like how to be goofy on camera so that others can kind of like find it entertaining. But it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that seems awesome. So how long have you guys been dating?
We've been dating since October of 2019. Yeah,
Okay.
or I guess yeah,
Okay, so like
something like that.
4 years
August
or something like that?
2019. Yeah, yeah. Got to get my months
Okay,
right.
nice. So you
August.
just passed up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, just passed up on 4 years. So do you have a plan to continue and like move toward marriage, or are you guys just like we're gonna keep it kind of how it is and keep moving forward?
Yeah, we got engaged in December of last year. So that
Oh,
was
nice.
yeah, that was our step towards being married, I suppose. Our marriage is going to
Yeah.
be pretty pretty small and quiet though.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Congratulations, man. That's a huge step. I mean, that's like,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Um, are you gonna be, are things gonna change? Like, are you guys currently living together, or are you gonna like get a new place, or what's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're nothing. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people can relate to this, but it's like you get engaged, but it's like nothing changed, and then you get married. I mean, we haven't gotten
Yeah.
married yet, but we expect like, okay, we're just gonna
Yeah.
keep living our lives. But yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's about the meaning behind it. Obviously, like you're committing to someone for the rest of your
Yeah.
life. So that
Yeah.
was that was written on so many metaphorical and like business paper, like literal business papers that we're in this together. Like we share a business fifty
Yeah. Yeah.
fifty
Yeah.
together, but also like there's no
Yeah.
one in this world that we would even think about living with besides each other. So it was time
Yeah.
and happy we're doing it.
Yeah, for sure. So I have talked with a few other people on the podcast who are in a relationship with someone who is not in the sport and then also is in the sport. Regardless, there's always an interesting dynamic. If it's two athletes, like you're battling a little bit on like, okay, I'm gonna go train now. Do I train with you? Do I not? And then if the person's not involved, it's like this is taking a lot of time from our relationship. How are we both okay with this? And how do we do that? For you and Jenna, has that ever been like a point of, dare I say, contention that you had to like really sit down and think about and commit certain things to, or like mindsets about? Like, has that ever been something you had to talk about?
Yeah, I think it's, with triathlon, it's always been like nonstop support. There's never been like, you know, a battle in any way, a battle for time, a battle for resources. It's never been like, you
Hmm.
have to go on a ride with me or else from either of us. Although sometimes she might think that she's like, I will not do this ride without company and stuff like that. But it's never,
Yeah.
it's never been like that between us. We oddly enough, like probably bond over at this point, like other things in our life that like, I think it's probably because so much of our life is public now, like especially as
Mm.
it relates to triathlon and the sport that like, the evenings that we have together watching like stupid reality TV is like the stuff that we spend the most time with each other doing. Um, so I
Hmm.
think like our relationship has kind of evolved into like, we're bonding more over things that happen off the camera that are not public
Yeah.
because it's like, I think, you
Yeah.
you're in an intimate relationship. You want things to be intimate with with your significant other. You don't want
Yeah.
everything to
Yeah.
be
For
public.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
how it's transformed, I guess.
Yeah. For sure. So that seems like that may be a little bit of the motivation, like of small wedding, just like keep it intimate type of a thing.
Totally. And our engagement was the same way. It was like no cameras, nothing. It was just us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Good for you, man.
it's something we haven't like consciously like we need to find time off the camera, but it's just like that's just
Hmm.
kind of like how we've evolved. It's just like finding those moments off the camera that we can enjoy together.
Mm. Yeah. Scarcity creates value 100% of the time,
Yeah,
for
scarcity
sure.
creates value. The other thing you said that I'm going to remember
Okay.
that I'm already forgetting. Oh yeah, never let a good crisis go to waste. I'm gonna
Oh, I
remember
can't.
those
I
two
wish I could
things.
coin that one, man. Oh, it's my good friend. But yeah, it's so true.
Okay,
Like, there's so much growth to be happen. Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
for sure, for sure. So I want to ask you about Working Triathlete. This is a team, I guess, and coaching group. How did you get involved? How is that currently going now? How does that fit into this whole mix?
Yeah, I mean, working triathlete is how I got started in the sport. And for anyone that's wondering how they can get involved in triathlon, like that is the best place to start. I my first job out of college, one of my best friends, coworkers, he was like he came back from Christmas one year and he's like, "Hey man, like my cousin is a triathlon coach and I want to do an Ironman. You want to do it with me?" And this is a guy that like
Yeah,
finds a new hobby every week. And I'm like, sure, sure, man. Let's like go do an Ironman. Introduce me to your cousin. Let's get started. So we get
yeah,
on a call with his cousin and we get the first week of training and everything and we go do it. A week later, this guy's like, I'm kind of burned out from triathlon. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm like,
a
like, all
week.
right, well, cool,
Nice.
but like, thanks for the coach. So
Yeah,
the coach I'm referring to is Conrad. He's the founder of Working Triathlete. And at the
yeah,
time, I was like, his eighth athlete or something like that. Working Triathlete now holds like 450, 500 athletes. Not all of them are
yeah. So
coached.
many.
Yeah, it's like I think how many like six coaches now. Um,
Yeah,
but it's every resource you can possibly imagine for triathlon, from like the total beginner, I've never put my foot in a running shoe kind of level, to like I'm
hmm,
trying to go pro with this sport. Like they have it all.
yeah,
But beyond those resources, it's just an extremely positive community, and that pillar of
yeah,
like community has never left, from like when it was 10 people to 450 people. You go to races and you meet up, and everybody is like sharing this bond, that not a lot of other teams in triathlon have. Like there are some huge teams out there that are doing amazing things, but it's like there's not that like level of like kind of deep connection, like we're together in this, that Working Triathlete has. So it's an amazing program. I'm happy to be like not only just a participant, but like someone who feels like that has seen it and like helped it grow to where it is today.
yeah,
So yeah, it's an amazing thing. It's really cool.
yeah, yeah. That's super neat. So I had the opportunity to get to interview Conrad and Derek too a little bit. And I actually need to ask a question because you can inform my ignorance. Conrad founded it. Is Derek technically a co-founder or not?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't know how to. I think Derek
I
is a
need
co-founder. He
I need to ask
was
him. Yeah,
he had a team that was also
yeah.
based
They
in
brought it to me.
Nashville, Tennessee, called Milestone Racing.
Yeah,
And then like a year and a half, 2 years ago, they were like, "Why are we competing for the market? Let's just become one."
yeah,
So I guess that makes them technically co-founders,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but they just stuck with the name that Conrad had. So.
yeah, yeah. For sure. Sweet, sweet. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing about. We'll make sure to
Mhm.
link them as well.
Yeah.
So couple more questions. Um, First question: what is your greatest adventure to date, and how did it formulate?
Oh, greatest adventure to date. Um, I mean, well, yeah, I was thinking of one thing, but then I'm like, no, no, no. Okay, well, it was the pandemic. It was when everything went to shit. I was living in New York in my Brooklyn apartment, and
Mm-hmm.
but I guess it was like right before things went to shit. Um, Jenna called me basically in tears, and she was like, something's about to go down. My brother told me, who just came back from a trip to Asia, like, this is all gonna go really wrong in just a few days, and we need to get out of here. And I was like, you're overreacting. Why are you crying? Why are you trying to pull me
Dude,
out of here and stuff? And
wow.
um, and I said no, and she called me again. And she was like, "We really have to get out of here.
We
I'm
gotta get
leaving.
out.
You're coming with me. Like, you can't argue." So she plucked me from my apartment and we went to an Airbnb in the Poconos and with her older brother and with a borrowed truck from their uncle and literally a day later it was like everything is shut down, no one's allowed to go anywhere, like you can't enter or
Wow.
leave New York anymore. It
Crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean everyone remembers like that day for them, and it was wild, but we had gotten out, and literally the next 6 months of our lives, we spent, like a month in the Poconos. We found this Airbnb in very rural eastern Tennessee on top of a mountain, and
Dude,
we were like,
welcome to my neighborhood.
where are you?
I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh yeah,
but
that's
I'm
right.
about to, yeah, all around. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we were in Butler, Tennessee, in like Watauga, Lake Watauga area. Um,
Middle of nowhere.
Yeah, middle of nowhere. And we spent like 2 months there until the season started to change from like perfect spring weather to like hot, muggy summer. And then we went up to Vermont and found an Airbnb there. And and
Wow.
then right before that in Tennessee, I was like, I should probably get a car. So I bought a car in Tennessee, and so we weren't just borrowing the uncle's truck anymore. Then after Vermont, we were like, we should go back to California, and we drove across the country, making stops in South Dakota, making stops in why am I blanking? The border of Montana and Idaho, like where the Tetons are, like in that
Yeah.
area.
Boise area. Yeah.
Yeah, basically just like finding little spots that we can get an Airbnb and like do amazing like outdoor adventures and train. I guess it wasn't training at the time. There was nothing to be training for, but
Yeah.
just like being active and really enjoying
Exercising.
like, yeah, just enjoying life while like all of this was going on, and being so uncertain of what the future was, but like we weren't thinking about that. We were just thinking about like how do we make the most of the situation we're in right now. And it led to like the greatest adventure of my life, of the life that I live with
Yeah.
Jenna. And it was like, just we were fortunate enough to be in a situation in life to like actually make that happen. I mean, people have
Yeah.
families, people have kids, and jobs that, well, I guess jobs were kind of ambiguous at the time. It was like everyone's remote at the time, but
Yeah, for sure.
but uh, responsibilities that didn't allow for them to do things like that. But we actively made the most of that situation, and it was it's still looking back on it. I'll like wake up in the morning like dreaming of like waking up in on top of a mountain in rural Tennessee and being like that was just the best time.
Yeah. Anytime you want to come back, man, my in-laws have a place up in it's called Jellicoe. It's right on the Kentucky-Tennessee border at like the Cumberland Plateau.
Oh,
And if things ever go to junk again, I can tell you exactly. I've got a map planned out. If we needed to walk there, I know how to get to the Cumberland Trail, and we'll walk all the trail system all the way to their house, basically. So check it
I'm
out. It's a
holding you
gorgeous
to
place. If you
that.
ever want to come,
Also,
little, yeah, dude,
yeah, yeah.
hit me up, man.
I
Yeah,
mean, Chattanooga is like one of the best places. Jenna did Chattanooga this past year, and I didn't race. There wasn't a
yeah.
men's pro field, but I was just out there training, and I was like holding like a week long, 2 week long training camp out here would just be so much fun. Like I'm
Uh,
jealous about like all the spots you have out there. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, man. And like, so I live 30 minutes outside of Chattanooga, and from my house, I can get in this pretty epic, like 4 hour ride where I ride to it takes about an hour and a half to get to the base of this place called Four Mountain. And then it's got like a serious 5 mile climb. So you can climb up and then go up into the mountains and turn around and come back wherever you want. And it's just like, yeah, I want to move somewhere else a lot. But the more I talk to more people on this podcast and hear talk about this area, and I'm like, well, I guess it's not that bad. Maybe I don't need to move yet. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, it is a gorgeous
Every
area.
winter, you're probably like, maybe I should move.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets kind of gross. It's like doesn't snow and that much. It's not pretty, and it's just like a cold and super like humid, wet. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
great riding and stuff,
yeah,
but you make it work, I guess. That's
totally.
yeah, it's not California. So, thanks for answering that question. That's super interesting to hear that story. I think the pandemic changed so many people's lives, and it sounds like
Totally.
you came out on top. I'm really happy you got outside of New York, like, because I remember I was actually selling stuff because I did work in China, and so I knew it was coming, kind of how Jenna did. Because a lot of my friends were like, "Hey, like, are you guys okay?" Like these manufacturers, and they're asking me, like, "I think it's going to get bad there. If you need help with whatever, let me know." And long story short, I ended up selling tens of thousands of units of like different types of PPE to local hospitals and dentist offices just because there was that crazy thing that happened. It was
Wow.
a weird 10 months in my life. Yeah, it was so
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So one final question and then I'll let you go. It has to be a stupid question. So the lead in may be a little lengthy, but here we go. Donald Trump was fined $10,000 recently for violating a gag order, as you may have heard, in your hometown, well, not hometown, but of New York, civil court fraud trial against him after he appeared to allude to the judge's clerk when speaking to the reporters, yada, yada. It's the second fine that he's been hit with over the order in the last week, which leads to me to the question, what do you think about Donald's hair and spray tan?
It is the worst thing I've ever seen. I can leave it at that, right? Like it's the worst.
So Donald Trump knocks on your door right now. He's like, Miguel, I need you to lead my new thing for my next presidency around triathlon. What are you going to say to him?
I'll say no, but it it's not against you, sir. It's just the hair and the spray tan.
Yeah, the hair in the spray tan. You could be the first federally funded triathlete. Think about that.
Yeah. It's not worth
Money
it.
you could
It's
just print it all
not
day
worth
long.
it.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
not at all.
Yeah,
Good deal.
I don't think he's the kind of guy that would be a good teammate
Yeah,
in any
probably not.
capacity.
He'd probably win everything. It would be
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal, man. Well, Miguel, thank you so much for jumping on and let me dig into your life a little bit and hear your story. At some point, we'd love to have Jenna on, but we wish all the best to you guys as you continue to grow Freestyle Tri and looking forward to seeing your next second year, pro year, and how everything goes. But yeah, man, it's been fun.
Seth, thank you so much. It's been great.
This episode is brought to you by The Rudy Project. Thank you so much to Mike Bunting and the team at The Rudy Project for sponsoring today's episode. If you want to receive 35% off everything that is Rudy Project, from helmets to sunglasses to gear, please check out the show description notes and you will find a link where you can set up an ambassador account to get, that's right, 35% off everything. Also, we have a newsletter that is on the website, stupidquestions.show. If you sign up for that newsletter and give us a follow on Instagram, it's just our Stupid Questions podcast. Anyway, I'll link it in the notes. If you follow us and sign up for the newsletter, you will be entered for a drawing that we will be doing for some Rudy Project gear. There are shirts, there are hats, there is water bottles, there are sunglasses, a number of different things. So if you want to be entered into that drawing, again, please go follow us on Instagram and sign up for the newsletter at stupidquestions.show. That is the website. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Stupid Questions podcast. Huge shout out to Miguel Maddox for coming on and sharing some of his story. He's obviously quite the orator. It was great to hear him just kind of walk through the different things that he's gone through, from swimming in his background to moving all the way through to becoming a professional triathlete with Freestyle Tri, meeting Jenna, getting married soon, all these other things. So just so awesome to have him on the podcast. Thank you, Miguel. If you made it to this point in the podcast, just want to say thank you. If you're watching on YouTube or Instagram, or excuse me, YouTube, then like, comment, subscribe, please. Does really do help us grow. If you are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any of those, please rate the podcast. If you're on Spotify, you can actually ask us questions through there, so check that out. Yeah, and if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can do that at the stupidquestionspodcast.show. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or ideas of how we could do things better, please let us know or let me know. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you in the next one.